into what we could accomplish, both intellectually, emotionally, or psychologically, etc., in our relationship with Hashem, with our relationship with our spouses, with our relationship with our friends and relatives and rebbeim, etc. With all these people, there are things there are impediments that keep us from relating properly. In a sense, we're slaves to certain activities that we tend to gravitate towards. The way we talk to people, we tend to fall back onto the easier way of dealing with an argument rather than taking each argument on its own merit, or working on something that we've worked on before and not being defeated with a defeatist attitude. All of these things tend to keep us down, and if we can free ourselves of those things, very often we just go right ahead. It's similar in a way to a Baal Tshuva when he starts the journey of being a Baal Tshuva. Then he comes into the yeshiva, everything's new, everything's strange, in a sense everything's wonderful though. And he starts to give up certain things that he was used to, and he starts to learn a new language, to learn Gemara and so on and so forth. And slowly, he's able to give up certain things that he used to think were important, or certain ways of thinking, like the Gemara often challenges our way of thinking. And certainly halacha, to keep halacha properly, challenges our old way of thinking. It's not necessarily what I want to do, it's what Hashem wants to do, and it's also not necessarily what just seems right to me. It's often, let's make sure that it's something in the halacha. We might have to ask, we might have to look it up. A lot of these things are, Baal Tshuva often, and most people who have gone through that are used to that. But unfortunately, after a long period of time, we get sort of used to the new way of doing things, and that becomes a new slavery. Again, we don't really think as much before we do something, and we don't necessarily try to progress beyond what we've accomplished. So all those tasks are really the new going out of Egypt for us. All those new ways of trying to grow, which very often just to realize we can do it, to grow into a whole new person, even at our age or whatever, that itself is a kind of a potentially freeing concept. At least today in the world, we have the world itself has come to a new awareness that no matter what your age, you can create a new life for yourself. You see people, even very older people, going back to school, going back for learning a new career, and sometimes volunteering for things that they would have never volunteered for earlier in their life. And they create a new life for themselves. And you see it certainly in Eretz Yisrael, people making aliyah, sometimes at a very old age, when things are all new and difficult, and everything is difficult, and you hear people always complaining, but that also means that people are really changing their lives. It's just difficult. So they let everybody know how difficult it is. But the truth is, we have a lot of examples around us that can challenge us to rise to the occasion. But this is a time we want to really concentrate. Perhaps on a certain level, that's why we have a month off from yeshiva. Why? Not the time you want to stop learning Torah right before such a momentous going out of Egypt, as it were. And especially when we said the whole thing was to come to Har Sinai as one nation, and maybe we can even reenact that this year and be zoicha to Mashiach, which will unite the nation. But how can we do that without learning? How can we just give up learning for a month and hope that we accomplish anything important? It must be that we're being challenged to do something on our own. Of course, each person should try to review during the month off as much as he can what he's learned during this long winter's man, as we said. And I told people, I'm available. Perhaps Rav London would agree. People want to call with questions. They should be encouraged to learn on their own and to still keep up the connection. And perhaps, with questions, and not to just feel like you're cut off from the yeshiva for a month. But on a certain level, we're challenged to find our own personal way to come to the Geula. So I think that this is a time to sort of use it for a little bit more of introspection. How can I grow a little bit more on all the different levels that I need to grow on? And a lot of it has to do with helping people around us, which certainly Pesach is a good time to work on those things. But we also have at this time an interesting, not only in the Chumash, we are starting a new Sefer, Vayikra, which is all about Karbanos, which is getting closer to Hashem, but it's also, like we say in English, a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice something to get closer to Hashem. And this is the new project that we're starting at this time, Sefer Vayikra. At the same time, we're reading Parshas HaChodesh, which is the first mitzvah given to Klal Yisrael as a nation, is HaChodesh is Elechem. And we're reading that this week's extra Parsha, the last of the 4 Parshas that we read during, or adjacent to Adar, to prepare for this time of year. And this is the whole idea of starting something anew, celebrating. Every month we celebrate the new month. And that's a symbol of the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation is like the moon that gets constantly renewed. And this is something we're being challenged to do, to start something new, to start something, a fresh start, even though it's not Rosh Hashanah in the sense of starting a new year, in the sense of Rosh Hashanah being a new judgment, but it is a new year. Even Rosh Chodesh Nisan is a type of a new year. And the reading of the Parshas HaChodesh reminds us how much as Jews that we seek out what's called hischadshus, renewal. And it comes, of course, at a time of the year when the whole world is being renewed, as far as the animals and the nature in general is being renewed at this time. But the Jewish nation always seeks out renewal. As I said, we are compared to the moon that gets renewed, and we celebrate the Chodesh each month with a special korban, with a special hallel, and many people have a festive meal on Rosh Chodesh. And the Parsha of Chodesh teaches us that this is the first mitzvah that Klal Yisrael got, to teach us that this is what we have to be constantly striving for, to renew ourselves. And as I said, when we go through the house and we're cleaning up the house, it's also a type of a renewal of the house. We feel like, in a sense, we're cleaning out all the old, we're bringing in a whole new chapter. And of course, on the night of Pesach itself, there's a lot we can accomplish as far as starting something new, just like the Jewish nation was finally able to physically leave Egypt and go into the desert and prepare themselves with the last preparation of purity to receive the Torah. We also, on the night of Pesach, have that opportunity. According to the Sfarim, it's a very special time to daven to Hashem, even though we think of giving over the story of Mitzrayim as one of the most important things, and of course the mitzvahs of matzah and moror and so forth. But there's also the idea of renewal, which is that we have to ask Hashem to help us to reach new levels of avodas Hashem, of helping people, of being good people, of being pure people, of being able to receive the Torah properly, and all the different aspects. So I just want to speak, for a few more minutes on this subject, even though in a way it seems like we're always making an effort to renew ourselves. But the truth is, it's hard. It's one of the hardest things to do as a Jew, because everything we do is a repetition. Every year we repeat the calendar. In fact, that's really what the word for year in Hebrew represents. The word shana is the idea of repetition, right? Shinun is repetition. Mishnah Torah is a repetition of the Torah. The letter Shin Nun, which really means to repeat something. So every year we have this repetition. Another year, seemingly, we do the same thing we did it last year. And a lot of people don't even prepare for, let's say, the Haggadah, which is very important, to sit down and actually open the Haggadah and prepare for it. Many people say, I did it last year. I'll do what I did last year. They rest on their laurels. They feel that they can just continue because they did it last year. So it's a very hard thing to renew yourself. But again, one of the things we gain in yeshiva is realizing every day in yeshiva we learn a new thing. We learn new things. We open up the Gemara, and even if it's a Gemara we learned before, we review it. We see new things in the Gemara. This is what a Jew has to realize, that even if things seem like they're just a repetition, and very hard to motivate myself to try to look into it, even to